Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the A Winner Is You podcast. If this is your first time listening, firstly, welcome. And secondly, think of us as your friendly neighbourhood video game book club, coming straight at your ear holes with a different game each episode to discuss and pick to pieces so you don't have to. Whether you've played the game alongside us in anticipation of the podcast, whether you've played the game before, or even if the game is nestled comfortably in your pile of shame, there will be something here for you, so be rest assured that we have you covered. If you're an A Winner Is You veteran of years gone by, you will know that we here at A Winner Is You covers like to pick themes for summer, winter. We've not had an autumn theme yet, maybe that's something we can look at. And this is fast becoming my favourite theme of the lot. Right, folks, back by popular demand being Alex and I, we have another summer of Resi for you lined up. And first up is what might prove to be one of our collective favourite Resi games. I guess we'll decide that by the end of the podcast. The 2019 remake of Resident Evil 2. But before that, it's time for some introductions. My name is David, and as usual, with me this week is my partner in crime, Mr. Alex Aldridge. How are you doing today, Alex?
Not great. Come down with a lurgy.
Lovely. Can you pull yourself together to Birkin your loins and, I don't know, red feel your pants?
Red field my pants. That would be a very much different type of lurgy that I definitely don't want.
We don't want that.
No.
It may come to that though. Sometimes we get things we don't want. So what's wrong with you? What an old lady from Aberdeenshire would normally say is fits worse with you.
Fits worse with you.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe COVID. Who knows?
Hey.
Maybe the G virus. Who knows? But it's why I'm drinking water this evening instead of beer, because it won't make me feel any better if I drink the latter. So I'm being a good lad.
You just got to power through. If you feel ill, just inject the alcohol into your veins, and then you're fine.
And maybe that would have worked. Yeah,
it works, but it makes you feel worse in the long run. As I've self-medicated myself when I've felt unwell with whiskey many a time. Makes you feel great in the moment, but the next day it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
So yeah, but I got a day out of the office working from home today, so that's where the notes for this podcast came from.
A bonus bit of Exo Primal were made as well.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting that. Did not question it though. Just went with it.
I was gonna say I forgot to even tell you that's why I was at home today. Oh well. So if I get huskier and,
sexier
gravelier by the end, then you know why. But what we've been doing is quite sexy. I think you'll agree.
It is. It has been quite I fell down and I think I say this every podcast, so I'm not going to say it. I went hard on this game this week. I had a great old time with it. It was basically every time I had a spare moment, I was booting up Resident Evil to have a run about and scare myself. Although it becomes distinctly much less scary a game after you leave the police station, I think. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
I think it's not the scares. I don't think are the only things that dip after you leave the police station.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
Something that's likely sort of repeatable for most Resi games after you leave whatever the main area that the bulk of the game is set in is. For example, 7.
Yeah.
4.
So is
1.
that just a thing that they do? It's like, let's hide a med lab type thing underneath some big building, or is it?
I guess I suppose if you've decided to base your in-universe disease / outbreak on medical malpractice rather than, I don't know, devil magic. I don't know what Romero used to use. The dead rising from the grave, whatever that was.
Yeah.
And I guess there needs to be a lot of laboratories around to concoct these.
The recent Resident Evil TV show that finished on a cliffhanger, then they didn't give the green light to the next season, so we'll never know. They went for like a whole town. It was basically, so it was like Umbrella had their lab, and then everybody that worked for the lab were in this town. Actually, fairly similar. I've just been to see Oppenheimer in the cinema. Maybe a modern version of that.
I'm going to see that this week as well. That kind of sounds a bit like Batman Arkham City as well, where they had like part of Gotham City's just the prison now.
Yeah, just build the wall.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's channel our inner Germany 1930s plus Trump in one go in a comic book, and we'll make a. Apparently, everybody's fine with it, as far as I could tell in Batman.
Well, I guess that would, yeah. I mean, it'd be a bit annoying if you kind of lived in, a criminal, like a flight path, but a criminal path. So now you had to move out because one of the guys who dresses like the Penguin needs to live here.
Yeah,
Well, at least commit crimes here anyway.
some sort of debauchery.
Yeah, but it got everybody. It got civvies off the streets, so Batman never had any collateral damage. So I guess there is that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that game, Arkham Knight. What was the
Yes.
problem with that game? Was it the PC port?
The tank.
Was it?
Oh right.
Like,
Sorry.
there was like
the PC port as
yeah.
well. Yeah, they removed it from sale. It was that bad.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh my
It
goodness!
was just completely broken.
I
I think we've largely gone back to that era as well, haven't we? The amount of times I see people complaining about PC ports at the moment.
we are sneaking back. It seems to be, yeah, it just feels like it's getting worse. Do you think it's like a sort of a COVID hangover? It's just like the games that were being developed during that era are sort of finishing and coming out, and they're just not quite as cohesive. I think that's an excuse, if I'm honest. People can work from home quite effectively if they put their mind to it.
I have no idea. I have no idea why a PC port would not be optimized in 2023. It doesn't make any sense unless chipsets meant that people couldn't get hold of high-end gear, had to build it on low-end gear. I don't know.
Especially given like console architecture is like a different thing these days. Like they're
Exactly.
like both there's no cell processors floating about, and there's like they're like I remember there being chat about when the new consoles launched that the architecture is much closer to PC hardware, so there should be easier to develop for simultaneously. So I'm
exactly.
not sure. I'm not sure. It's funny that the microtransactions and loot boxes never break. They always seem to work.
Oh yeah, that gets prime development time. That
Yeah.
does. Not in this game though,
No.
because this is a lovely, refreshing way to play video games. In many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Should we dive in?
I think it's time to dive in.
Alrighty. Well, just for parity's sake, the game was released on the 25th of January in 2019 on PS4, PC, and Xbox One. But David and I were playing the Series X updated version that released in June 2022.
So what have they done? Frame rate?
Yeah, so the initial release supported 4K or 60 FPS. The version that we played obviously supports both together, so it is 4K at 60 FPS. Or it may be 1440p, but I'm not entirely sure. But you do have an option for ray tracing mode that does fix a lot of the quite severe problems that the original game has with mainly reflections. There's a Digital Foundry video out there that you can go and watch where it shows. I was actually trying to show you what the problem is with it in the police station with the reflections on the ground and stuff. But you weren't watching my stream at the time, so I was basically talking to you and you weren't even there. So the ray tracing, the lighting, and the reflection stuff does look far better, but the game then runs 40 to 60 FPS uncapped. So it's not optimal for, precision aiming, which this game does require a lot of. It does help, I think, if you have a 120 hertz TV, because you can then add there's a second mode which is like high frame rate mode or something, so you can do the ray tracing plus high frame rate. And I think if you've got a 120 hertz TV, you'll probably get 80 odd FPS there. That's probably the best way to play it. You probably need VRR. I can't afford that shit, so I don't have that kind of a TV yet. No. So I played it quite unexcitingly, if that's even a word, in just the performance mode. Yeah,
I suppose I probably did the same.
No, it doesn't even have a performance mode anymore, does it? It's just ray tracing on or off. So I just turned ray tracing off. Yeah, I'm
not sure. I assume whatever. I maybe didn't touch it, but yeah, I play most of. I do have a 4K TV downstairs but I don't use it very often. And actually my Series S is connected to that. My Series X is up here in my gaming monitor that isn't 4K. So
it's just 1080.
Don't know.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
ask me. Don't even know how I would know anymore. I can't remember. It's quite a good one, but it's not 4K.
Right. Okay. But it might be able to get the extra frames. I don't know. Or did it tell you that you didn't have the hardware for it? I think it did tell you that, didn't
It
it?
was, yeah. It was telling me I didn't have the
Yeah.
hardware.
So it's nice that they did it. Probably isn't as exciting or even as effective as you'd want it to be for an update of a game that's just over 4 years old now
Yeah.
for a new hardware, but it runs better. I mean, probably the best thing about the version that we played now is the loading and the saving, which is like lightning quick.
Instantaneous, yeah. I said
Yeah,
this
it's
to you before
incredible.
when I was playing. It loads so fast that I often forget. I often don't realize that it's loaded, and I'm just sitting waiting on it loading. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to press A.
Yeah. Did you notice as well that when you did the second run, it actually tells you. So because it cuts out so much of the beginning of the game, you don't see the guy eating his burger talking about how his wife looks like a corpse,
Yeah.
or the crash. You don't even play the gas station section. Um, it actually has text on the load screen to get you caught up with all the bits that it's just
Oh,
cut
does
out
it? Right.
because the
Okay.
game loads so quickly now you can't even read it. It's so quick. It's just like you can read the first paragraph if you're quick, but no. It's yeah, that's I found that very funny that they don't have like a press A to start. It just starts the game, so you can't even read what they're trying to tell you has just happened. Did you play the demo? So, because prior to launch, well, actually, I know you played the demo because you and I played it at Gamescom, and I was buzzing from playing that back then. We
So I
queued for quite
did.
a while, I believe, for this.
Yeah. That was
Might have been
that. I think
2018, I
that
guess, wasn't
was.
it?
I remember we sat and played. I think we played Mario Kart on our DS, and I think that was the one. If it was like, if I ever come back to another gaming convention, I'm taking like a camp chair so I can just sit down in the queue while this is all.
Oh yeah, well that must have been Switch by then, I guess. We
Would
were
it have
playing them.
been?
Yeah.
Maybe we did then. Yes. Okay. I did. I did play the demo. But I've got very little memory of it. What is the demo? What's in it?
Well, it was called the One Shot Demo, which was released prior to launch, and you had half an hour time limit, and you could only play it once. But apparently that was downloaded 2 million times in its first week, which is must be very
So even if
pleasing
you
for a
downloaded it, it
bit
was
of
like
marketing.
one and done.
Yeah, once the timer's over, that's it. You can't play it again.
Oh.
I guess if you had multiple accounts or consoles, you probably could do, but yeah. So that was a cool little thing that they did, and I remember being really hyped from the demo. Um, Reviewed obviously very, very well.
Mhm.
It's got 93 on Metacritic for the Xbox version and a 91 for the PS4 version.
It's basically everything you would want from a remake that is taken what has been
Yeah,
done in the what was PS1 era, and then
yeah.
taking that concept of a game and modernizing it. That is, I can't think of a better remake. There may be one that I'm missing, but this is one that I can't think of.
Well, I mean, we could talk about the quality later on, or we can jump a little bit towards that now. Let's just do a quick comparison because we have played a remake of a Resident Evil game already this year. How is it? Well, I suppose how familiar are you with Resident Evil 4 original to compare
So
it
we
to
did forgot
its
all about
remake
already
versus
forgotten
this
about
one?
that. I haven't well, I haven't made it past the village at the beginning where you get the shotgun of RE4 on
Hmm.
Wii, and I've never played it on GameCube.
Okay,
I don't know if there's a
it's
difference.
really tough because you're talking 2 and 4 are definitely my two favorites of the originals,
Hmm.
and both the remakes are absolutely excellent.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as you
they're
say,
really well done. But you're not
yeah,
such a fan. I guess we'll find out next year when we do Summer of Resi episode season 3. But if we stick to what we've spoken about, but you weren't such a
yeah,
fan of RE3 remake.
no, no.
Is it still good?
Um,
Is it just not as good, or
it's
is it
yeah, it's fine.
totally fine?
They added in some nemesis boss fights that were not enjoyable, but we'll talk about unenjoyable boss fights later on, I imagine.
Because I have played maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours of RE3, and then I must have got distracted because I think I say to you all the time I really want to go back to it. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it fine. I thought it was okay, pretty good.
Um, I mean, yeah,
But I've
it
not played the
looks great.
original
It handles
of
great.
any.
Obviously, yeah. The streets of Raccoon City look incredible in that
Hmm.
game. Um, the biggest problem I have with it is obviously it's far too short. It was done off the
How
back
long
of
is
this
it?
engine. 5 hours.
Okay.
It was done off the back of, this being a success. It was in development pretty quickly after this one was finished because it was so successful. They cut out a lot of the original game. It's just not in the remake. There's obviously one playthrough you can do, really. There's not multiple versions like there is this way round. They tried to make up for that by doing... what's the Resident Evil one that's not Reverse? But it begins with an R. Resistance, is it, or something?
There is... Yeah, let's go with that.
It's the one that was like the asymmetrical multiplayer shit where one person's the controlling all the enemies and all that. That was lobbed in as part of the package to try and make up for how short that game is. And Nemesis is just not as effective as Mr. X is, because Nemesis is entirely scripted every time that you see him. So he's
he
either
a different
like a completely...
monster?
Yes.
Right, okay, because in my head they were the same. They look different, and I had just forgotten by the time I saw 3.
I mean, he does look kind of like Mr. X. They both have that sort of really pasty grey face. They're both massive bastards. But the funny thing about the one in Remake 3 is that he's got basically like a bin bag on his head for the start of it, which is quite amusing. I don't really know why. Mr. X in this game, actually, he's got like something stuck in his head. You can kind of see it's like an antenna that seems to be sticking out of him, because I think he's being controlled, but it actually has the Umbrella logo on it. If you
does it?
Zoom in really
That's
close
daft.
to it.
You do not... If you're going to be an evil, like comic book villain medical testing lab, you don't want to telegraph your crimes by putting your logo on your actual crime, do you?
Yeah, it's like a burglar.
Put the Twitter logo or
on
something,
his
yeah,
back.
like Elon Musk's face or something on it on the end of the antenna. Just like don't put your own one on there.
T00 was a tyrant sent into Raccoon City during the 1998 Raccoon City destruction incident.
Because it's simultaneous, right? 2 and 3. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Jill's out in the streets while this is all going on. This is a few days after, I think.
Right. Okay.
The mansion, or maybe a bit longer than days, because I know that obviously Claire is looking for
a few days
Chris.
After the mansion, but at the same time as the police station, because they are all very... Those first 3 games, and I know nothing about... No, Nemesis is 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know nothing about... Yeah, okay. And then 4, what is that, like years later? Does Leon become a STARS lad? Follows in Chris Redfield's. Yeah. But what threw me... And I think this is... I kind of wanted to get into this, actually. Sorry if I'm derailing. But the... Chris Redfield, when you're running about in the police station, Marvin says that Chris is on holiday in Europe, which matches up with, well, both 7 and 8. Do those run concurrently, or is that, am I just missing, is he off actually on holiday in Europe?
Yeah, I think he's actually on holiday in Europe, because obviously
Why didn't you tell Claire? And because Claire's come to visit him, and they're obviously close enough to have matching jackets.
Well, see... That's a good question, because obviously Chris is not on holiday in Europe. He is in the mansion. Or he was in the mansion anyway.
Oh, shit. So he is. He's not on holiday.
That's why she can't find him. That's why he doesn't know where she is.
And he's like STARS, which is like, is that like super police?
Yeah, exactly. So
Leon's
then
not
obviously
STARS.
Chris's story then would see him go to... well, he's in Code Veronica. He goes looking for Claire, I think. In Alaska, in a bit you've probably not got to yet.
Never got to
and
that.
then obviously he's off to
there,
Africa,
though.
and then
5.
obviously he's back in 7 as like
and Leon
working
becomes
for Blue Umbrella.
Because Leon's not STARS, is he? Or is he?
No, he's RPD.
But he becomes STARS, does he? Because he's STARS by 4, no?
No, he works for the president then, doesn't he? He's like
He's just like a bodyguard.
Special Forces.
Yeah. Okay, which is different. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's just disassociated from that by that point, because Chris is working for the BSAA. Is he in 5?
Oh, is he?
I think so.
So even he's not STARS.
Not by 5, no. He might be in Code Veronica.
And what is he still BSAA in?
No, he's like Blue Umbrella now, isn't he?
Is Blue?
He's like
was that like anti-umbrella? What is that?
Yeah.
They've got a special.
We're laying bare the nonsense that is the Resident Evil timeline right now, by the way, because this is all like me trying to explain things that I don't even know are right. But what I do know is right is that apparently the Mr. X was flown over the city of was flown over Raccoon City to apparently they made six of them, and they were flown over the city. Some of them went to incineration disposal plant P12A to fight Delta Force operators. T00 was given two unique missions. This is Mr. X. Firstly, it was to eliminate any survivors in the Raccoon police station, which Umbrella could not verify had already fallen. And second, it was to locate a sample of the Golgotha virus and return it to its designated pickup point.
And what's Umbrella's
That's the
goal?
G virus, obviously.
What do they want?
At this point, to cover up what they've done.
So yeah, they're just like they've accidentally unleashed a virus, and they're like, right, we'll fix this by unleashing another virus. And it's all different strains because Birkin must be different from Mr. X, and then there's like, what did you say?
Birkin's self-inflicted, isn't it? Because he just
injects
injects himself after they shoot the shit out of him with trying to take the sample away.
And I think trying their stuff on children's an established thing already, right?
I would say so.
Okay, because I feel like I knew that from somewhere when that sort of little girl, you find out that she's from an orphanage or something.
It's Claire, isn't it? Is that Claire?
The Claire playthrough.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, in Welcome to Raccoon City, aren't they from an orphanage as well? Her and Chris.
Oh, are they?
Because she says in this game to Sherry, "Oh, I haven't got any parents either."
Oh, so she does. Don't know. It's almost like we need a member of a Resident Evil podcast to set us right.
I'm pretty sure Umbrella in this scenario are trying to cover up what they have done.
Right,
I don't know why they were doing it, but it seems that William Birkin obviously was the creator of the virus and later injects himself with it after being shot by Umbrella's cleanup crew who are trying to come and take it away from him as a means to sort of keep himself alive, and then he becomes fucking mutated and gross and really unpleasant to be around.
Yeah, there seems to be two versions of Birkin in there, like a monster version, because there's like two different heads as well. And then like that head, the really weird looking head comes out, and that's when he gets violent.
His little Siamese twin guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't say that anymore, actually. Can you? Can you say that anymore? I don't even know. Apologies if you can't say that anymore.
Who knows?
Conjoined twin. Let's say that. The little conjoined twin comes out. Sold really well. Shipped 3 million copies in its first week, 4 million in its first month. So that was Capcom's second biggest launch on Steam as well, after Monster Hunter World from the year prior. And they updated. Capcom did a sales update released January of this year, 2023, and they said it was. They announced that it had sold where they announced it had sold 11.3 million copies up to January 2023. So that's pretty good for them.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, they apparently considered using tank controls and fixed camera angles for the remake because they wanted to try and please like the hardcore fans of the original game. Because I suppose at the point where this came out, they hadn't actually remade anything other than Resident Evil 1, which was remade with tank controls and fixed camera angles on the GameCube.
Oh, does it? Okay. Because I was going to say, when you're saying it's remade with tank, I was like, it's not an Xbox when I played it, surely. I don't think I would have made it through
that version of Resident Evil 1 remake has the option for tank controls, but it by default it has just sort of straight up free movement.
I think they made the right decision. It's quite a slide indoors moment, isn't it? Because this is the RE remake that sort of injected some life back into this franchise, right?
You could probably argue that this may have opened the floodgates for not just Capcom and Resident Evil, but for a lot of studios with a lot of IPs. Dead Space being one, Silent Hill 2 is coming out now as well.
Yeah, you're probably right. They've seen the success of these games, and they're just trying to follow suit. You're right. You're probably spot on. Like, if they didn't get this right in the way that they got this right, those games probably don't exist. And this, like you're saying, this revival of the franchise probably isn't there either. Was 7 already on the go? When does 7 come out?
7 had already come out.
Okay.
So 7 had brought the franchise back into not shit territory. And this was obviously being developed by a completely different team who made that. They made that video, didn't they, where the guy had a shirt on that just said "We do it," which I cannot believe no one who spoke English in Capcom had anything to say about that. No one had a look at it and thought maybe we should just make that make sense. Yeah, he had his little jacket on and he ripped it off, and his shirt said "We do it," and they made this big announcement. Yes, we're finally going to do the Resident Evil 2 remake, and we're going to do it in the style of modern Resi or Resident Evil 4 or whatever. Which I agree with you is the right way to have done it. They said that obviously they were forced to think up new ways to like scare people now, because in the original games, a large part of how they scared you and made zombies more effective of an enemy was to hide them around a corner that you can't see.
It was fixed camera angles and
camera change. Right? Exactly.
Okay.
So without that, with it being behind you every time, they had to do a lot of different things to actually get people scared. So they used a lot of like darkness is a massive like factor in this game. If you think about the original Resident Evil 2, all the corridors are really well lit, like the whole police station. There's not really anything dark in there.
No.
This one, you got a lot of using of his torch. There's loads of smoke effects. There is broken windows with like lashing rain and wind coming through it.
Those are so well done. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. And I wish they had done it more, because they do it a couple times where you can go into rooms and sort of turn the light switch on.
Yeah.
They only do. There's a couple safe rooms they do it, and then there's the press room, and I was trying to think of any others, but I wish they had done a bit more of that. Sort of played with the lighting.
Yeah,
they could have. Yeah. Anyway, it's not a big deal. It was just I like that little touch.
Yeah, and it's really well done. That when you're having to use the torch all the time and whatever, like to just sort of mask enemies in the distance enough, and especially the ones that are on the floor. If you play the game on hardcore, the agreed tactic apparently is like you're gonna have to just down them and leg it. Headshots don't really make a difference as much as they do in this version. So the tactic for hardcore mode is shoot them in the legs to stun them, because apparently if you don't stun the zombies, there's like a stun animation, and if you don't do that as you're running past them in hardcore mode, they will do that running grab after you every single time.
Sons of bitches.
Hardcore playthroughs are apparently riddled with crawling zombies on the ground, because you just can't. You're not finishing any of them off, and you're just shooting legs.
That's one thing,
which is more of a Dead Space tactic, I guess. Yeah. Right?
We've got like a lot of sort of zombie games that have come out over the years, and I was trying to think of like these to me are the maybe. I was trying to think of better ones, and I can't. Again, like. Happy to be proven wrong, but I can't think of like better feeling zombies, like the way they sort of shamble and then like their heads wobble about, they don't stay still if you shoot, and you're right, they've got that little injection of pace over a couple yards that they can just they can just do you, and it just makes them feel like dangerous and scary and unpredictable in a way. I think of a lot, like even I was thinking back to like Days Gone zombies or Dead Rising zombies, like super predictable in terms of their attack patterns and the way they move. But these ones are I've made my point.
They're amazing. They are amazing. As you say, they well, for starters, they are animated incredibly well. The way that they like the viscera and the gore in this game is probably quite underrated for how incredible it is.
Yeah.
Remember that bit where he fucking pulls the guy's head apart?
Yeah.
He's had like all of his mouth ripped off. Looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
All the times you shoot a zombie, like any part of its body where they get like the flesh kind of starts to rip off, you can obviously cut their legs and arms off. Headshots look amazing. That and the way that you can sort of change how a zombie's going to react towards you by doing this limb damage is so well done. Like, as you say, it's one of the best zombie games there is. And the coolest thing about that is that Resident Evil hadn't touched zombies for decades, and they had a wave of zombie games that had happened in between. You've got Resident Evil Code Veronica's on Dreamcast, like 2001, maybe 2000. And they've largely stayed away from zombies since then. They've updated their enemies to all this different shit.
Yeah, you're right. I've honestly, now you're saying that, I'm like, of course they haven't. But it's just that had never clicked with me before. That's funny.
The zombie space has been taken up by themselves with Dead Rising, as you say. They probably made at least 3 of those games by the time this came out, if not 4. There was Call of Duty, all the zombie stuff in there. I mean, there's endless zombie games you could think of. Dead Island, all that shit. Like,
Yeah, I think
there's
I'm one.
so many
It's,
people who've tried it while they've been out of the game,
yeah, you're
and
right.
they just come back and bossed it again.
It's like those are like two of my biggest I don't know my biggest unpopular opinions. Like I've never got bored of World War II shooters, and I've never got bored of zombie games. But that seems to be.
Yeah.
I remember a period when people just hated on both of those, and I was like, I like them. I still have fun with them.
Yeah, I bought and really want to get started at some point on Stubbs the Zombie, where you play as a zombie.
Oh, they've just. Did you buy? That's the thing they remade, right?
Yeah.
Great shout.
Yeah, that'd be good fun.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing they did actually to make this game sort of scary is obviously the sound design. Apparently, they built they'd recently built this like dynamic mixing 3D sound stage where they used this new technology they had to make all this like 360 binaural sound.
Did you feel
technology.
that always worked for you? I thought there was the odd occasion where it didn't.
I think on paper and in like conceptually, the way that it tries to modify like sound effects sort of relative to your character's position in the mansion and the way Mr. X is moving about is amazing, but yeah,
Mr. X
sometimes it did
good.
sound a bit off.
Yeah,
like,
Mr.
not
X for me was well, as far as I could tell, he was spot on. I could generally tell the direction he was in relative to the character. It was like zombie groaning I would hear. So like there was the odd occasion I noticed, and it was maybe just a bug rather than the audio design. That I would hear, like I'd be standing, say if I was standing up against a wall in a safe room, and I'm facing a door, that I would hear the zombie on my left, but I think what I'm actually hearing was the zombie like in the next room on my left, so that when I opened the door, I would then know where it was in terms of the relation to the room, but from where I was standing, it was totally off, if that made sense. Like it sounded like it was right next to me, but it was actually sort of forward and left. So if you stood if that makes sense. I don't know if I've explained that well.
I guess it's trying to do it relative to where you are, but the 3D nature of it maybe didn't quite work as well as it should have done. But yeah, I mean, Mr. X, as you say, that does work really well. It needed to work really well because of the fact that he basically is always.
I love that.
Around.
I was actually about to say that, and I couldn't remember what video I'd watched, but it's. I love when you get little like nuggets of information like that. The Skyrim dragons are the same in that they're always present in the world. They just sort of the dragons in Skyrim basically just when you're not looking at them and they're far away, they become little sticks basically, but they're always there. And the same with Mr. X, he sort of his animations obviously stop, and he sort of T-poses around the place, but like he's always in game, and I think that's amazing because it makes the space feel like an actual space, if that makes sense. Like,
totally.
Because you were speaking about the sort of scripted Mr. X or whatever he's called bits.
Nemesis. That's why it's not as good.
It doesn't feel real, and he'll like go from being behind you to spawning in front of you and things like that. I remember that happening. Whereas Mr. X never does that because he's got to get to places. And that just makes the mansion. Told you I would do it. The police station feel like an actual space that you can sort of exist in and move around in and manipulate with him. It seems like nothing when you describe it because you're like, well, what does it matter if he's there when he's at the other end of the mansion? But what it does is it creates something. It means if he's miles away as well, he's actually got to make his way to you rather than just sort of...
He does, yeah. But
so you may tell me he can teleport.
He can teleport, but he will only teleport if he is stuck in an area that is no longer loaded. So I don't think the game can necessarily load the entire mansion.
Right, okay.
You made me do it. The entire police station all at once. So if you go like completely to the other side of the police station, and then therefore wherever he was, he's no longer loaded into the memory, he will sort of like teleport through it really quickly.
Okay.
And then he will end up somewhere, and then he'll start looking through rooms again. He will also teleport if he's got a scripted segment coming up, like the bit where he breaks through the back of the press room wall, or to the car park. So there are sometimes, obviously, where he needs to teleport to be ready for a scripted segment. But for the most part, he is just walking around looking through doors and trying to find you in a a
I
very
love that. I think that's
natural
so
way,
good.
which is incredible. But I think I saw like an opinion that I sort of agree with on this, but I wasn't able to articulate it until I saw that, where largely Mr. X, I don't think is necessarily as much of a threat as the thought of him makes him.
That,
So the
yeah.
sounds and the hiding from him and knowing he could be anywhere is more of a threat than when he actually finds you, because he's quite easy to bait.
He
He's
is.
quite easy to just juke out of the way or stun.
He is,
But
yeah.
he's the most effective part of him is that he makes you play the game in a way you aren't comfortable to play it.
Yeah.
And he makes everything else in the game more of a threat. He makes
Yeah.
lickers
Liquors are
that you're trying to
dangerous.
walk slowly past. If he's in the area, you can't do that
Well,
anymore.
yeah, because it's contrasting gameplay
Yeah.
mechanics, isn't it? Because I didn't see you engage with many liquors now I think about it, because whenever I saw you, you were sort of out of the police station. But yeah, like how I would play with them is you just, like, I would, when it was certainly in the Leon campaign, I would only ever engage with them if I was forced to. I would sort of try and dodge them. I'd go slow. But then you can't do that when Mr. X is there. You've got to run. And you're right. I agree with you. He's not so much of a threat himself. I'm trying to think of, because I never actually, I think I got distracted by a liquor, so I never sort of marinated on the thought. But I was trying to think of, how I'll endlessly moan about the sort of, if it sees you, you're dead mechanic of the Alien game, Isolation. And I was
wanted
like,
to bring this up actually as well.
I was
I
like,
haven't got it in my notes, but comparing these two is
yeah, they're interesting
worthwhile.
because the Alien is a real threat in the way that you're
Absolutely.
right, Mr. X isn't. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to parse my blind rage because I clearly wasn't good enough for a section and the alien was just catching me, versus my honest critical opinion of, like, Mr. X, you can get out the way of him, you can outrun him, you just sort of stay, you can just sort of kite him at arm's reach. But you're right, like, there are certain moments where, like, a chain of events will happen. You'll maybe get caught by a zombie, or you'll run into a locked door that you didn't see was there, or you're right, you'll come across liquors in which he does become a real threat, because if he catches you, you're in trouble.
Oh yeah, if he does get his hand on you, then yeah. But if he's pushing you towards zombies, because apparently in hardcore mode he chases you faster as well. But it is just that sense of, like, taking away player comfort and adding player tension.
You're
At
right.
all times,
Yes.
keeps it stressful and makes every part of the game stressful. Maybe
And
not him, but if he comes from one direction that I thought was safe, that I've cleared out, I've got to go through the way that's got lickers in it or
He
zombies
still
in it, and I've got
gave
to
me
go a way I
dread.
don't want to go.
Yeah. He still
Yeah.
filled me with dread when I knew he was coming, or I
Yeah.
could hear him moving and stuff like that. So, and I can't remember what I was going to say, because you keep saying something and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great point. And then I forget it as soon as we move on to something else. If it comes back, I'll shout it out. But yeah, like,
Nothing to do with the alien again, though.
no, it was because I was like, oh yeah, I got distracted by the alien, and I never really actually, because I got distracted by a thought that was incomplete in my head about the comparisons between the two of them. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there probably are people that don't like him being in the game. But
Yes, he forces you to play. You're right. It's when you said he forces you to play in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. Like, it makes me move around the police station like I would, if that makes sense. Like, if this is there's some point you get to the video game-ness and you're just like tearing about the place. Like, if you play that game enough, you know where the zombies are going to be, and you know where the liquors are, and you don't care what's around the next corner because you can kind of handle it. You've got a knife. But you're right. You're like, right, I can hear he's nearby, but if I can just move slowly, you won't know him here, and I can just carry on. And then you get forced to use your gun, and you're like, oh no, here he comes, because he's heard that. And you're right. It makes you move around a way in which feels a bit more believable. What's it? Ludonarrative dissonance that they always talk about with GTA 5, where you're meant to be sort of this under, or what's the word? You're meant to be this sort of misunderstood guy who's maybe done a bit of bad things, but actually you're mostly a nice dude. And then like between missions, you're flying about in a car, running people over and like shooting policemen and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
this sort of gets rid of that by forcing you to act in a certain way, which is a great point
I guess
that
it
you made
makes
much more succinctly than I did.
it. I assume there probably are ways to manipulate him if you've played the game enough, like fully manipulate him. That's an assumption though, because the way I would kind of look at it is that it must make almost every playthrough slightly random
Yeah.
and dynamic in a way that you can never rest on your laurels of just gaming the game by knowing the entire routes you're going to take and knowing, having a smooth sail all the way through the police station because you know everywhere to go, because he's going to ruin that at some point, surely.
Yeah, you're totally right. Can you see on that and how, like, with that and like kiting him and the randomness of the game, can you sort of tell me how you feel about the controls? And like for the most part, I think this game controls really well, but I'm sort of caught between two sort of trains of thought with this, in that on one hand there was the odd time where I felt like Mr. X was chasing me and he'd like take a swing at me, and I kept like try to press like LB to do the Alan Wake ducking animation, and then there was other bits where I'd like floor a zombie and want to run up and stamp on their head like you do in Dead Space, but the game doesn't let you do that. And I'm sort of torn between thinking, oh, it would be nice if the game allowed you to sort of move a bit more realistically rather in the sort of rigid way that you're forced to run by zombies. Because like if I had to run by a zombie, I'd be like ducking and try to sprint rather than same old running animation. But then on the other hand, the sort of toned down, stripped back nature of the controls does add tension, and I don't think that tension can be underplayed. And I can't decide whether I'm of the thought of I like the tension that it gives me, which I do, or I think that it feels lazy is not the right word, but it feels uninventive to restrict the player. It's the same. We've had this conversation about sort of tank controls over the years, and that like I don't think you need to tank control the player to create tension and fear. I think there's other ways to do it, and I guess this
Not
is
anymore
just
anyway.
Yeah, I think and moving and shooting was a big thing back in the day with the old Resident Evil games, and I don't think that's a necessary way to do it. So like, do you know what I'm getting at? I'm sort of torn between enjoying the tension I get and not being sure about them using the controls for that.
It must be a fine line, because they've obviously got to balance, like, player experience with their vision of how difficult the game is going to be. So to sort of hamper your character's agility to an extent where they can't be, like, as you say, doing like forward rolls or running up the wall to get out of the way or whatever.
But they never sprint either. None of them. I'd be sprinting for my life.
Yeah, I mean, even the sprint is more of a heavy jog.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
I never really found it as. Yeah, I mean, it can be an issue with the boss fights.
I'm just not. Yeah, yes, which is I think where I was mostly feeling it.
Yeah, and I think potentially that is maybe kind of stuck steadfast to an old style of mentality towards survival horror and how to create that, in terms of like, you are just going to have to decide if you take damage or waste ammo. So this boss is going to hurt you. Did you bring enough health from your supplies that you should have been finding as you played through this game? Or do you have enough ammo to, you're running through a corridor full of zombies, you've got not a lot of ammo but a lot of health. Are you going to waste what little ammo you have left now when you could use it on something big? Or therefore you're going to take a hit to your herb supply or whatever? So I think maybe it's that, like, kind of like resource management is part of the challenge.
Yeah,
so to make that the challenge it has to be needed to the point where you can't just like sprint and duck and dive your way through zombies like a normal person try.
I think ultimately it's what it is. At the end of the day, we're playing a video game, so they can't add everything to it in the type. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting. I don't like feeling like a player's. I don't even.
You hate it when there's something that seems out of your control. that you
Yeah,
couldn't.
I think
You had no way of avoiding, which is totally fair.
no way
A
of
totally fair
avoiding.
criticism.
And I find myself getting, and again, this is just video games, so like this is a me problem, but I find myself getting angry when the game takes control off of me. So like any sort of game mechanic that'll freeze a player in place in a multiplayer game, will just drive me round the wall or make me move slowly or edit my turn in circle and stuff like that. And I felt often like like if you get hit, some of the animations were really frustrating. And but it is what it is, and it's
And
like
it
I say,
does
it's a
put you
me
in boss
problem.
fights that are very enclosed too, like quite a lot of the time in this.
Mm.
If you
Yeah,
think
it
about
does.
if
They're
you lay out the
very
boss fights
claustrophobic.
yeah, like the first Birkin one, the G1, where you're running through all those like sort of pipes or whatever, and there's all that steam coming out. That's very enclosed. The big
Of
fight
the
that you
boss
have with him is basically in a
fights,
circle. There's one on the train turntable. They're all in arenas, really,
the worst,
and small ones.
the one that gave me the worst rage was the Mr. X fight at the end of the
Yeah,
Leon
but
campaign.
that's on a square.
Tiny area, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking back. I of the boss fights, I think that first one's maybe. I'm trying to think of maybe my favorite, where you're sort of like the steam's fun, and I like how it all starts pretty normal, and then Birkin sort of starts smashing the place up and adding steam to the environment, so it sort of
yeah,
changes as you're playing, and then like he'll begin following you, and if you I don't know if it's a phase or if you just get further enough away, he'll every so often he'll stop following and go a different way, and because of all the steam, you're like, oh no, where is he? I really like
yeah,
that. I thought that was really well done.
yeah.
Rather than let's put them on a square and just make you run in circles.
And sometimes put rock in the way that you can't run through.
Yeah.
You got to run around. They were obviously hamstrung by the original designs of the bosses, I guess, and not wanting to change things too much.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the one thing this game probably lacks is a good boss fight. I wouldn't say any of them are good.
No, I think I
Really,
probably agree with you.
they're all
But
quite similar.
I do think that's maybe a wider discussion for a different day. Maybe there's an episode where we bring our It Grinds My Gears or Hot Takes episode to the table where we just sort of make statements and then discuss them. But like they are done well in certain games, but I think like story based or anything that's going for a narrative, I'm not sure we need boss fights in every game. Like they're not always necessary. Like I think like they fit in platformers and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think this game necessarily would have been worse if you just binned the boss fights.
No, it builds some of the character, I guess. Certainly for Birkin, I suppose, and how it relates to his family. But
Yep, you're right enough.
but yeah, the execution of them was never anything that much more than run around in circles, try and avoid getting hit and shoot the weak points. It's basically every single one of them.
Yeah. Even I just think like I was like so we were about to play Remnant 2. I suspect the boss sort of fights in that'll be fun. Like obviously there's the Souls games that the boss fights are fantastic, but they're sort of built for that. I'm not sure Resi feels like it's got them because video games and it's from an era that was a thing that video games had. I'm trying to think. Even like the Resi 4 ones none of the Resident Evil boss fights that I can think of are highlights of the game. It's all actual play in the game.
I think I agree with that.
There's
I'm
no
struggling to pluck one out of the air that I think is actually amazing.
Yeah, I'm struggling. Even that one with the little lad in the RE4 remake is just it's a square room with stairs. So it's 2 square rooms basically.
Yeah. They do. I mean, Resident Evil games are definitely like video games, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and another square one. The one in the barn in RE4 remake as well. That's another one. Where you just
where that's
run.
basically almost like a 2D plane of it just coming towards you and going away again. Yeah.
Anyway,
yes. The obviously they put so much like reverence and love for the game into this remake. You and I played most of it, I suppose, or at least more than the majority of it, with the DLC added original soundtrack and noises you can put over the top, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
The 98 polygonal models that I'm gutted I didn't realise till after I'd already played it 3 times and never wanted to play it again. That's there. Elsa Walker's gear as a DLC outfit for Claire is quite cool because it harks back to Resident Evil 1.5, and she was the character from that, which is another potential game we could have a look at for this.
Yeah.
season. They also did a lot to make sure that it was still set in the 90s as well. Apparently, all like the environmental set designers made sure nothing was on show anywhere throughout the game that could not have been around in the 90s.
Oh, that's quite smart. I was going to say, because you find like dictaphones and tape recorders and stuff like that, and
Videos,
the cassette players. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
And chess pieces, of course, they were famously invented in 1992.
Oh, everyone was opening their doors with loads of chess pieces in obscure configurations on walls, and like even more sort of like riddles on the wall written by some guys, just like, oh yeah, probably put the rook next to the bishop or something. I don't know. So yeah, thanks for your help, mate. They also apparently worked with Harley Davidson, because in the original game, Claire like starts up on just a standard like basic generic motorbike, but this time she has a 1998 Night Train.
Does
Harley
she?
Davidson Night Train, yes. And its license plate is J2198, which references the fact that the original game came out on the 21st of Jan 1998. Very
smart.
fucking cool.
Yes.
The last bit of trivia I have for you is that the game was developed obviously in the same engine as Resident Evil 7, which is the RE engine, which allowed them to reuse quite a few assets. You know the room on...
Which suddenly makes the third person...
movement?
RE8? The was it the DLC you can buy where Ethan's in third person? That makes that make a hell of a lot more sense.
Apparently, that's not as good as it seems it might be, from what I've read.
Oh, really?
That it's not actually really transposed it from first person to third person in a well thought out way. It's more of like a 1-to-1. They've just gone and made him move in third person and animated it, but it doesn't actually feel right. You're still kind of playing first person style. Apparently, it feels a bit off, which is a shame, because I was really looking forward to trying that.
Yeah, that would have been fun. That would have been a fun, maybe pod.
But yeah, on the third floor, there's the room where it's like I think you get a key in there. There's like a mannequin in front of a light, and it shines out, and it makes it look like there's a bloke standing there. That's a shrunken version of the big mannequins from the attic in the Baker house from Resident Evil 7.
Oh, is it? That's great.
Yeah. There's like grandfather clocks and some other stuff that's all like been copied
Just reused
over.
assets, or is it meant to be nods?
Reused assets. Because some of the stuff is like... There's like a newspaper somewhere, apparently, that's also in Resident Evil 7, but the one in Resident Evil 7 you can actually read, and it's talking about Resident Evil 2's happenings.
Oh, great.
So it's like from the future. So, yeah. Bizarre. Before we get into the game, though, I guess, any more thoughts that you might have? I've already mentioned like my thoughts on the reverence and the animations of the zombies and stuff. I think this game is fucking amazing. Like it's faithful, but it's fresh. I'm surprised we haven't used the phrase "keeps you on your toes" yet, because we've been, that's
talking around
such
that. We certainly have.
Definitive thing to say about this game is that the way that it kind of fucks with how the original worked, like with the placement of stuff and the way that the liquor is and whatever. It's just so cleverly done.
I think
it feels right how you may remember it, but it's not quite.
Yeah, it's funny that like. Because I always say, like, I've never really played the old Resident Evil games, which I think is actually nonsense. Like, I've certainly played them all, and I played a good bit of it. I think when I was a kid, I just wasn't good enough to finish the games on my own. And, like, I was remembering bits and pieces, but I think, like, you're talking about, like, the reverence and the nods, and it's, like, intelligent enough a game that people that are familiar with Resident Evil 2 can play it and think, oh, look at that, here's a nod. It's like respectful to the fans in a way that like Resident Evil 6, for example, was not. But then there's I think at the same time, and it's like a lot of testament in brave decision making, I think, when they were making this game, and that like it has helped me develop a fondness for the series that I didn't have before. And that, like this feels like a modern game. And it almost gives me a window into what people like you and your mates would have had when you were younger playing this game, with the fear and the awe and the sort of like this is a quality series that I never had until these games came along. I played the RE1 remake and thought it was fine. I'm not a fan of the puzzles. I think I tell you that every time we talk about it. But it's
Yeah,
like RE2, the remake, just hits that sweet spot where I'm just like, yeah, I get it. Resident Evil's a cool franchise.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a very good
So
way
like,
of
yeah,
putting
where
it.
I'm getting with that is I think what I think's most impressive about it is it's faithful enough that a sort of long running fan like yourself can feel rewarded for your fandom,
Definitely.
and it also is fresh enough and new enough so that someone like me who doesn't have the same affection for the series or didn't can come to it afresh with a sort of clean set of eyes and still have the same fun experience. I think that is
Yeah.
rare in a remake.
Yeah, because it is completely remade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's set in the same story, set in the same locations, but the feel of the game and the way that it plays out and the layout, it's totally fresh and new. It's not just
Yeah.
it's not like Crash Bandicoot or whatever, or Spyro, all that shit that Activision have been putting out, where it's just the same game. This feels markedly different in every single way,
Mm-hmm.
but it still is enough of Resident Evil 2 for me to still love it, as you say.
Yeah.
And I just love that. It's so atmospheric and it's still scary
Mm-hmm.
because of that atmosphere and the way that it hides things from you in the darkness and the use of sound, like we've already said. The learning curve as well that it sets you with, like, you start the game off sort of shitting your pants around every corner, going really slowly. But as you go through certain, like, additional playthroughs, like you were smashing through it the second time. You did it like 5 hours or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It becomes a much more like strategic game where you're planning things out. Your inventory management becomes more key. The routes that you take, you can try and like optimize it. I've always loved that about the Resi games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once the scares are over, once the power fantasies have set in towards the end of the game or whatever, and you know exactly what you're doing and you've got better weapons and stuff. If you go back and play them again, that's why I always used to play them with my friend Chris. Like, talking through the strategies, remembering where to go, doing the puzzles, like learning the layout of the police station is like as big a part of the fun as the horror elements are. And the police station itself is one of the best settings for a game, I think, ever.
Yep.
I love how beautifully interconnected it is and how well it kind of opens itself up. This is so much better and more sort of time productive, um, than the original version is. Like, the original version will stick you across, like, something will be on one completely opposite end of the mansion to where you actually need to take it, and the backtracking can become a bit of a pain in the ass. But this one, I think, really doesn't do that to any egregious level, and it actually
No,
makes it a lot more intuitive when you're moving around, where things open up sort of as they should in a more understandable and forgiving way.
I'd also like to sort of touch on the fact, sort of, I think it's worth mentioning, the when you're talking about the difficulty curve. I think what it does in a
Yeah,
really interesting and smart way is, like, so you start the game obviously, and then there's like areas of danger and areas of safety, like that main hallway at the start of the game. There's Marvin, who you know is buggered, but at the moment he's still a friendly figure and he'll
yeah,
help you. There's a save point there, there's your chest, and then you go into the dangerous area, and then like that is like a sectioned off area, and as you sort of get different bits and pieces and explore, that dangerous area expands, but at the same time it also reduces because you start to kill zombies, and they obviously
mm,
don't. A lot of them don't come back, so areas that were once scary and dangerous, become safe, and then it'll drip in a liquor, and you're like, oh, this is a
yeah,
new threat and a real threat, and then it sort of again turns it on its head by introducing Mr. X, so the areas that were once safe are now dangerous, and then it reduces your sort of safe area again because Marvin turns into a zombie and
yeah,
Mr. X can run about that area. So your
yeah,
sort of once was your sort of brightly lit refuge is no longer that. And then when you finish the
yeah.
game and start again in the B playthrough, it flips all that again by moving stuff around. And it is,
Hmm.
and Mr. X is there from the beginning. Liquors are
Hmm.
there from the beginning, and it just sort of, I think, as you dig into the game, it starts off at this relatively safe space that just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think it's really well done. Like the curve is a beauty to behold. It's just done
Yeah.
real. It's done subtly in a way that you don't really notice until you sit back and think about it.
Yes, the game does, however, have an adaptive difficulty
Does it?
mechanic underlying everything.
Sneaky.
Um,
So you're
I've
better
seen
to be bad at the
people,
game, is what you're saying.
yeah, and I've seen people criticize it for that because I got some stats here, and I can't remember where this was from, but it's obviously some forum discussion on Reddit from a few years back. So apparently, you do less damage and take more damage from enemies the higher up this rank you go.
How
So
does it?
it ranks you based on a score that it assigns you based on actions that you're performing in the game.
Okay.
Starts at 5,000, which is rank 5. I don't know why. I don't know why it doesn't start at 1 and have it at whatever, but there we go. So, like, 5,000 to 5,999 is rank 5, 6,006, so on and so on. So, if you die, you get minus 1,000 taken off of that score. So, you're almost always going to go down a rank. Getting bitten by a zombie is like minus 300, apparently. Shooting enemies, killing them, completing objectives, that increases your score, and the game gets more difficult when you hit the next rank. Standard apparently caps the score at 8,999 and has a max rank of 8. Whereas hardcore always goes from 8 to 9, and you start with 10,000. And the max you can go to is 12,999, but it always stays at rank 9.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So apparently, hardcore mode does less of the rewarding you for playing badly because you can never go below rank 8. So it's always going to be that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So if ever you thought to yourself, like, and we've said it out loud to each other, like, fucking hell, man. That zombie just took like 11 headshots.
Yeah.
And still kicking. Well, that's probably because you haven't been bitten for a long time. Or
Right, okay. Because I was trying, in my head, I was like matching them to like the zombie types. So like it always seemed to me, to me to be that Asian kid that was just he just wouldn't die. And I wondered if
the worst ones were the big fat lads who were banging on the machines. They always one-shotted those bastards.
I kind of wondered if the models were signified the difficulty of them, but that makes sense. Okay, because there was a period where I was like 7 headshots and counting, and he was still getting up. I was like, for God, just die, man.
How do you feel about that? What do you think about having an adaptive difficulty setting that works that way?
Well, I never noticed it, so obviously it worked for me fine.
Yeah,
I think it's okay. I think I would be so like I was trying to think of this as you were saying that, and when it comes to like the Souls game and stuff, I would personally be I'm resistant to the idea that all games have to be for everyone. So like this sort of argument that surfaces every time a Souls game comes out about difficulty settings, like I think the developers are perfectly within their right to say, no, this is our vision for the game and this is what we want to make. If you don't like it, you don't have to play it. That's absolutely fine. But there's also nothing wrong with people enjoying a game. So in the flip of that, a game like Resident Evil, where I think where I'm trying to get to badly, is like I don't have an issue with the game thinking, right, we want you to have a fun time, because that's why we're here, to have fun with the game and enjoy it. Like if it's going to maybe, I don't know, if it's going to help you progress through the game and enjoy it more, I don't have an issue with that really, and I don't know why someone would have an issue with that. I don't think it necessarily impacts the vision, like we're speaking about with the Souls games. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Like I say, I never noticed it, so it was obviously not an issue for me.
Well, yeah, and as we said, the actual sort of difficulty curve of the game itself works in a way where if you have gone a long time without doing any mistakes and dropping rank or whatever, I guess you are going to feel more confident with what you're doing. And I don't mind the fact that it therefore like almost surprises you with how difficult it is to take something down, because that's usually how both of us probably felt in like, what the hell, this guy's like super tough, what the hell's happened to this zombie?
I did watch a video back years ago that was talking about Resident Evil 2, and so what I was sort of attributing that to when I was playing, I'm sure I watched the video, and it was talking about there's like a sort of dice roll that goes every time you shoot a zombie in the head, and sometimes that's why their heads explode once, and sometimes that's why it takes a few shots. But obviously maybe the dice rolls just get stacked against you the longer you go without taking damage and getting hurt. It does make me now question bosses I was having a hard time with. So I had a bit of a hard time with Mr. X.
I wonder if bosses are are a part of that.
And I wonder if he ratcheted himself down eventually.
Maybe,
I don't
yeah.
know.
And I guess I forgot about the fact that there's assisted mode there as well, isn't there? So that probably is actually the rankings 1 to 5, maybe. I don't know.
What's the
But
assisted
apparently,
mode?
did you ever get offered that? I
It
got offered
offered
it
to put the
a couple of
difficulty.
times.
Once offered to put the difficulty down for me, and I said no,
Yeah,
thank you. And it was like,
yeah,
"Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll manage, thanks."
yeah. The so that obviously makes the enemies weaker. It puts aim assist on by default as well, which you can turn off.
Didn't even
But
notice
it
that.
um and you also regenerate health as well, just by
Do you?
turning around. Yeah, not fully, but certain parts of your health will just regenerate just by walking around and not getting touched again. And I think if you start on assisted mode, you get an assault rifle as well,
Oh my goodness.
and you get more ammo apparently
Oh,
with the
was that what it
craft.
was doing? Okay, maybe rather it
So
wasn't
you'd have never
asking
been
me.
on assisted mode
No,
because
okay.
you'd have always
So
said no.
it was offering to put assistant mode on, not turning
Yeah,
it. I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
reading. I was just saying no because I knew what it was asking me. So it was
Yeah,
offering to
luckily
put
they put it
assisted
on
mode
no for the so you can hammer the A button through it and not accidentally turn it on,
Right,
which
yeah, yeah.
I appreciated that. But yeah, if you did put that on, then yeah, sorry, scrap that. I was reading for Resident Evil 3, so the assault rifle and all that stuff is bullshit. But yes, you do get weaker enemies and the regenerating health and stuff. So I'm glad I never turned that on, but that is there for people who want to play an easier version of the game, I guess.
When I was playing with Claire, I got poisoned once, and I went, I think about 10 to 15 minutes without being able to find antidote. Would I have died eventually, or is it just annoying because I was getting
Yeah, I
annoyed?
wonder if you just go right down to like red and then
If I'd got touched,
die
maybe I
that
would have
way.
died. Because
I
I had to
did
do it was the
find
whole section where you get the electric shotgun. I got poisoned on the way there, and I couldn't find an antidote, and I did that whole section, and then found a purple herb as I was leaving. I was like, "Oh, it's been here the whole time." So I've been going through this coughing for nothing. While you're looking that up, though, I do like how Birkin goes off the top rope in the final boss battle with Claire. He like climbs up the side and like tries to elbow drop you.
yeah. Because I found somewhere earlier where it was like it had a list on the Resident Evil wiki where it was talking about like the ways in which you can die normally. But I don't think it says it here. Fuck, where did I see it? I don't know if like letting yourself get poisoned is one of those ways. I'm not sure that it is,
Okay.
but I feel like I may have seen it. Like, but there's stuff like losing, like running out of time when you're in the incinerator as Ada or whatever, or getting grabbed by the chief when you're playing as Shelley and blah 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 blah.
That chief's a horrid. He was giving me the willies, him.
Yeah, he's a horrible man. Actually, that'll speak to the fact that I think this game is actually quite well acted. I thought
Yes.
I much prefer this Leon to the Leon in the 4 remake. The silly Leon in original Resident Evil 4 is good fun, but I thought this Leon was like just about naive enough to be pretty likable and believable. Apart from that stupid bit where him and Claire are like flirting with each other through a fence in the rain. Where there's zombies like behind Claire and behind Leon is a man burning to his death in a fucking helicopter he's just crashed. It's so good to see you. Like, what the fuck?
I liked his little
Very
comment.
weird.
Sometimes you were like, you'd shoot a zombie in the head like 4 times and he wouldn't die, and he'd be like, "What the fuck?" And it would be like exactly what I,
Yeah.
or like, Jesus Christ, exactly what I would be saying on the TV.
Yeah.
He'd be repeating it. It was brilliant.
That is excellent. Yeah, Claire's is really weird as well. She's calling everybody, "You bastard."
Yeah.
Like, she says that loads. Fucking
Did
hates
you
them.
talking about well acted? And when you were talking about the police, it sort of reminded me. Have you played those bonus missions? I quite like them.
No, I haven't. No, do you want to go through them a little bit?
Yeah, they're essentially just like time attack score modes. So like
Okay.
it'll take a character that you meet at some point in the game or encounter at some point in the game. So the first one I did, there's that girl that's lying on the table when you go to the orphanage. You control her, and basically it gives you a little animation to start where she basically attacks the commissioner, and then she like makes her escape the orphanage, and you're basically going from the orphanage. You've got to find your keys to break out of the orphanage and then make it to basically a safe place. You're going through the town. That's really well done. And then there's another one where you play as the guy that's got the bitten kid. You
Yeah,
encounter,
Kendo.
and as he shoots his daughter. So the bang you hear behind the door, that's him apparently shooting his daughter. And then as he's about to shoot himself, he hears on the radio that there's a helicopter to help people escape. So then you go on a run to try and reach the helicopter and escape. There's another one where you're a policeman and that I didn't bother. I started doing it and I was like, okay, I see what this is. I'm not going to keep going. You basically got to get to 70 zombie kills and it puts you in the petrol station at the beginning, the sort of intro one, and there's zombies coming from different directions. You just got to stay alive. And then there's another one where was it Meat? What's he called? Meat Sack. What's he called? Hunk. That's it. You're trying to escape from the underground place. It's interesting but sort of confusing, which leads me on to the next thing. Is like I couldn't quite tell whether the playthroughs were linked or if these are like separate instances. So what I mean by that is like when you're doing the bonus mode, you play that girl that seems to have been getting raped by the commissioner, and she dies in the main game, but she's obviously fully alive in this bonus. I can kind of put that to one side, but then there's
That's, I guess, like an alternative reality.
Yeah. There's the odd, and I would need to sit and think about it now, but there's the odd thing that happens in the first playthrough with Leon and then the subsequent playthrough with Claire that make you think that they're running concurrently, but then there's the other things that happen that don't quite match up. So the first boss fight to me doesn't make sense if they're both happening at the same time, because you crash through the same grating. And then what? Do they fix it in time for Claire to come back and then she falls through it again?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you know?
I don't, and I don't think it's necessarily... Well, it's not made clear, and I don't know if it's actually intended. It just seems like they're just variations of the same story with a slightly different tinge to it.
Well, then there's the bit where we were talking about the liquors, and that makes sense to me because there's no liquors in that area of the car
kennels,
park. And there's the dogs. And then when you come through as Claire, she's like, oh, Leon's obviously been here. The dogs are all dead, and there's liquors at the bodies.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. But then, like I said, there's other bits that don't.
It's like it is kind of like it picks and chooses which parts are going to be relevant. But it does just seem like your partner is doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas we're expecting the partner to be doing what we do as that person. So you expect like Leon, whatever I do as Leon should have been done or being done while I'm playing as Claire, but it's not, because you fight all the same bosses pretty much. The main difference is just that Claire and Leon have a different objective. Leon's objective is to work with Ada to get the G-Virus sample and take it to the FBI and expose Umbrella, whereas Claire's is to find the antidote and save Sherry and escape with her.
I think they're just two separate stories, aren't they? Because even like when we're talking about the chess pieces, like someone must have taken the chess pieces and put them all back.
Yeah, yeah.
And your interactions with the girl's mum are different.
Yeah, yeah. So they are told in a slightly different way. And you do get to the part where you're Leon when you speak to her on the monitor, and then Leon says the same thing in both playthroughs, but one time you're talking to him and the other time you are him. So yeah, and it's weird. It doesn't seem to be coherent enough, and I guess it'd be too much effort for them to make two completely different games where one action begets a different one. But I don't think it's concurrent. The two people, I think they are there at the same time, but their stories are not happening the way we play them at the same time, because otherwise
and you're right,
the bosses are all regenerating and waiting for you to come back.
There'd have to be multiple Mr. X's as well for that to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It makes it worth playing both of them, but it doesn't make sense at all.
No.
Oh, well, let's talk about it then. So the police station is obviously where we start both times for both characters. I will bring up if there's any changes as we go into it, but the police station is where you spend the bulk of the game, thank Christ, because it's easily the best bit.
Yeah.
you're mostly at the beginning of the game searching for these medallions, whereas I don't want to talk too much about the original either and how it compares, because we are planning probably next year to play the original version of this, so we will probably go more into that then rather than now, because we don't. I'll just be going from memory or somebody else's research, and I don't want to do that. We obviously we do things like meeting Marvin in the main hall, as you've already pointed out. He gives us his knife, which we use to cut through the box to open a shutter. I think in the original there, he does give you a key instead, and he's in like a different room or whatever. But as I said, we'll do more of that next year. We get the introduction as well quite early on to the gunpowder mechanic, which is a mechanic that Resident Evil games have kind of like picked up and put back down again throughout its history here and there. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. It's relatively straightforward in this one. There are other games where you need like reloading tools and all this other kind of shit, but this one didn't mind it that much. Just a shame that you couldn't make all the types of ammo with it, I thought.
Okay, yeah. So you take it, because I was trying to figure out how to make flame rounds in the Claire, but I never.
I don't think you can.
Right. Okay. Because I kept ending up with acid rounds, but they're not as useful in the underground area.
No, and I don't know if you pick any of them up in the game. Thinking about it, maybe once. You certainly don't get them that often. It's obviously interesting to point out as well that if you're playing hardcore mode, because of that mode's necessity for using ink ribbons, some of the items that we would have been picking up in our standard mode playthroughs will be replaced by ink ribbons, so you will get less ammo and health in place of stuff like that.
Bastards.
Yeah, and obviously you get less. You get fewer upgrades to your pouch, so you get less storage space. So you're only getting half the amount of additional storage. So even more inventory management needed there on the harder mode anyway, which sounds nightmarish. I thought to myself at one point I might try it, but fuck it. I don't think I ever want to do it. It sounds like a bad time.
Yeah. Maybe if, like, I don't know, I guess there's another world in which maybe we're not moving on to another Resident Evil game for a podcast, in which you and I get obsessed with rerunning the game and trying to get better times than each other.
Yeah. I think you've won that. I can't remember what my second time was.
Which is stunning to me, given how much time I wasted in my inventory. Especially that big bloody box.
My quickest one was 5 hours 55 minutes. I think that was you. Mine was 5:27 in my Leon playthrough.
Oh, you beat me.
By like 25 minutes or so.
But that 25 minutes easily I can make up by not messing about in my bloody chest.
I think I saw you arranging your item box at one point, which I found very funny. That's what me and Chris used to spend all our time doing in the original, but for this one I don't bother.
I kept going through periods where I was playing the game where I was missing stuff that I was in my big box. I'd be like looking for like health kits and things like that, and I was like, well, if I just stick it all together. But it doesn't let you do it, so you've got to sort of empty the box and then put it back together in the same.
Which is why I didn't do it that way. If you could just arrange it inside the box, that would be really nice. But if you have to take it out and then put it back in a certain order,
and then you get near the end, you're like, oh, I forgot to add. Here's a herb I forgot to add to my herb pile, and then you got to take it all out. Oh my god, I did that so many times.
Yeah, because it doesn't. Even the original games, I'm pretty sure, let you put things in the box where you wanted them to. You'd have to take them out of your inventory. And then you can arrange them within the box rather than just arranging the box standalone. But at least when you took it out, you could say, I want that to go here. Whereas this one, it's just you store it and then it puts it just the next one down. So you ruined the item box, boys. You made it worse. There's, as we've already mentioned, like they play with darkness a lot. There's a lot of open windows that need to be shut with boards. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the zombie's going to come through. You're a bit into doing that as well. You're very much like wanting to make sure everything was how you wanted it.
Yeah.
The item box is how I want it. All the windows are boarded up. All the rooms are no longer red. Like I say, that's why I love these games. It's about strategy and how, like, it's almost like house cleaning.
Yeah, it was.
Or housekeeping. There's the dark room as well. That's plays quite a prominent role. Different roles as well through the different
that was interesting watching you do that and getting different pictures and things.
Yeah, you get the actual combination to one of the statue for the medallions in the B playthrough, because the notebook is ripped up and covered in blood, and the film is therefore needed for the combination of that. Because when I first saw that, I was like, I must be missing a trick here because this book is useless. Like I went up to the lion statue. It's like, there's no way for me to read this. It's totally like blotted out. So I don't know what I'm doing. And that's where I felt like when I said to you, oh, the objectives seem a bit all over the place. Because when I saw that, I was like, I don't know what to do. I've got the book and I've got the extra page. I don't know how to get the medallion.
I love
really
that
know
though,
what my objective
because
is.
you're such a Resident Evil vet, especially with like Resi 2 and stuff, and like you're getting this and you're like, even having completed the game like twice before, you're like getting this stuff and you're like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I think it's done so well.
Yeah. Lickers are around a lot. We've already mentioned them, but they are. If you can't avoid them in this game, like that jumping attack that they do is basically instantly into red, no matter how much health
They're
you've
lethal.
got. Yeah. And they do seem to just, like I said, at one point I had a moment where a licker kind of jumped out, attacked me, and then fucked off into the environment and never came back. I quite like that as well. Like you never quite know when they're gone because I don't know where he's gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's coming back.
Are they attracted by like dead bodies? Is that where they come from? Because I'm now like thinking about where they appear. It's always around where there's bodies.
I don't even know what they're supposed to be.
There's a Resident Evil game I've played, and I kept expecting it to happen in Resident Evil 2, and now I can't remember which one it is. What Resident Evil game is where you go through like a lab area that's just filled with liquors? There's like it's like a liquor farm, and there's just like
5.
wall. Is it 5? Because I kept expecting that to happen. I was like, where is that? I just got a bunch of flower lads instead this time, like with their Independence Day meme, with the guy stuck up against the glass.
Yeah, that's in the guy with the wristband on.
Yeah.
According to ResidentEvil.fandom.com, lickers are an irregular mutant resulting from a rare secondary metamorphosis of zombies infected with an unnamed variant of the E strain. And the E strain is a strain of the T virus developed by the research staff at the Arkley laboratory. It says the exact causes and process of transformation into a licker is imprecise and often unpredictable, but typically affects zombies who have consumed large quantities of biomass to sustain their metabolism.
Biomass? Like like food?
I guess so. Maybe dead. Or is biomass like the virus itself? Like if you get loads of the G virus, do you become a licker?
Maybe. What virus is 5? T. Because we all know if you get loads of T, you get loads of the 5 virus, you turn into a big fish.
Oh, you turn into the Kraken, yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Imagine like knowing all of this stuff like off the back of your, off the top of your head, like you know what a licker is and how it's created and what strain of the virus it's got. Fucking hell, man.
It depends how it goes as well, though. Is it the Silent Hill guy that's off making a game, Slitterhead? Like
oh yeah.
Just because of how disgusting that game sounds, I'm kind of scared of it to be good. Because I don't want to be like, liquor's bad enough about us talking about liquors in depth, but talking about Slitterheads in depth.
Yeah, very true. Because I'm pretty sure I said at some point, didn't I, when you were playing, I don't want to have a liquor up my arse or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Behind me. Innocent on paper, but yeah. The library is an interesting transformation in this. The puzzle's slightly different, and it's more of like a big combat area. Like in the original game, it's just kind of a room with a puzzle in it, whereas this time around, there's fucking loads of zombies lying around.
Yeah, so many.
If you get Mr. X in there, it's quite funny as well, because he jumps down from that little ladder you can climb up, doesn't he?
He never did that
before you go on the bookcases. Yeah, he'll jump down. I think he might even jump up it as well. He's pretty nippy up that ladder if you try and sort of kite him around there.
The thing I like a bit in there is how he interacts with other zombies. He's just like, get out of the way, and shoves them to one side as he's going by.
Yeah. That's one of the few areas where you've got a zombie eating a corpse as well, which is quite fun. I left that guy eating for ages. He must have been so fat by the end. And at one point, actually, that's one of the few areas as well you can use like high ground, because you can stand up at the top of the little mini ladder and kind of like snipe the zombies from above. I shot that guy eating, and it like glitched out the physics, and he ended up like I shot him, and as he fell to the ground, he sort of fell under the corpse he was eating, and almost gave him like an F5 as he stood up and like flicked him off. It was brilliant. I've got a clip of it. I'll send it to you.
TikTok video.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
play
Might as
John
well.
Cena's or JR shouting about F5s.
Yeah. What else do? We collect some electrical parts. They're for different reasons across the different playthroughs, aren't they? Because for Leon, it's down in the jail, and for Claire, it's like to get the key card from old Chief Irons' little secret
That's right.
taxidermy room.
This little taxidermy room.
But part of that leads us to the clock tower, which I saw somebody talking about this on a video where you remember I said to you when you went in there. Obviously, Mr. X will never come in there. No enemies will ever come in that room. That's probably like the safest room in the whole game. I said to you, like, don't worry, you don't need to leave all the parts that you need, other than the large cog are in that room. But in the original game, like, there's nothing in that room. You have to bring everything to it. So you're gonna have to leave a lot of inventory space to work it properly. Whereas in that one, it's kind of like once you've gone in there with that wheel, it's just like a little self-contained puzzle, and you smash up a bell and grab the thing, and out you go. But the original needs more sort of forethought before you get in there, which is annoying.
Brutal.
What did you think to the little mini safes? Did you enjoy that puzzle? I found them quite compelling, but I had a real shitty time with one last night where I was playing it for like 5 minutes and just could not concentrate properly on it. It must have been really tired because it was like nearly midnight, and I'm just like, oh,
I really
God.
liked them. They were great fun.
Yeah. And I do like how they add that element of the missing keys for the safety deposit room, where you've got like two of the keys have gone missing to open the little lockers. I liked that. That whole room is a cool idea.
The thing about those little mini safes is it when you open it, it goes like do 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 do, and I kept expect it to do Zelda, and I was like,
me too. I was gonna say that to you when you were playing it. Oh, I'm so glad it's not just me that thought that. And I can't believe I didn't put that in my notes, because I thought that every single time as well. Yeah. Here you go. Like, everybody listening, here's the noise of the safe, and here's the song we're talking about. There you go.
Yes.
See? What else do we have? The Stars office. We had the armory as well. The little Stars badge.
I really hope that I really hope that every Stars issued police badge is a USB stick.
If Capcom haven't merchandised that yet, they're idiots.
Surely.
Little USB.
I'm surprised I've not seen that
drive.
as like a press package gift.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Yeah.
That's where you get your slightly different weapons. What's your preference for the weapon loadouts? Whose did you prefer?
And
Leon's is certainly a more standard set of weapons: pistol, shotgun, magnum.
My favorite gun probably ended up being, like, I think Jill's got some more heavy weaponry. Like you get the minigun with Claire. Sorry, not Jill. You get a minigun with Claire. You get that electric shotgun was really cool, and also the sort of flame round thing was amazing.
I think that makes her playthrough a lot easier.
I had quite it's kind of offset to an extent because I had quite a visceral dislike of the MG machine gun. I just didn't enjoy using that at all. Whereas there was nothing I didn't like of Leon's.
Okay. You played Leon first, didn't you? Because I started with Claire first, having that grenade launcher, and felt like the shotgun was a massive downgrade on that. Because I felt like I was saving
probably
the
would have
shotgun
felt like that if I'd done it
specifically
your
for
way
lickers
around.
and shit,
Yeah.
and it just didn't do enough damage to him. Whereas the grenade launcher would be really straightforward, like a couple of shots, and it would kill pretty much any licker.
You made a great point that I never realised until you said. Was it yesterday or today when we were chatting? Like I find it's almost flipped. So like I think the mansion's easier as Claire, but the sort of lab area is much easier as Leon.
Yeah, because of the flamethrower, that makes that area quite trivial.
Mm-hmm. That was an interesting point that I'd never clicked until you said. And I was like, of course, yeah, they're like opposites.
Yeah, I actually quite like the SMG. Maybe not for actually taking zombies out, but because you had so many bullets and you could feather it to just get like one round at a time. Because you're often walking around with like 70 bullets. It was a nice, easy way to just check a zombie's definitely dead. Little pop in the head with one SMG bullet, and if he gets up, then you know what you.
I think you were probably
what you're
using it
working
right. I remember like there was a bit in the sort of sewer area that I was just getting overwhelmed by zombies. I was like, right, time to bring out the big guns, and I just had like 250 SMG bullets, and I think I unloaded them all, and then never killed it. Like I killed like one of 5 zombies, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what a waste.
Yeah. What else have we got? Oh, shit! What have I done? Oh, pressed the wrong button on my mouse. There's not really much else like main events, I suppose, that I would talk about for the police
We've
station.
not mentioned the dogs yet. They're scary.
Well, yeah, that's coming up. They are scary though. I guess there's the bit where you got to detonate that C4 in the room, and then the fucking liquor comes as a result of it.
Didn't come in my Claire playthrough. Is that normal?
No, I think that's
because I was
yeah.
expecting it. Because I had to.
Yeah.
I basically ran for my life when I was Leon. The thing doesn't fall either. The thing over the door.
Did you not? One of them you did it like you preempted it, didn't you? I remember you that thing falls down.
No, I put it back up and then went and did
before you went to go get the medallion. Yeah, because it's classic trigger point sort of thing. Obviously, you got the interrogation room as well, which apparently made you shit yourself.
Oh, it did. I might actually go and find the. I might go and find the video actually and make a cut of it because I walked in and I was like, you ever. This is the interesting thing about this game is like obviously it's like very different in many ways, but there's the odd like room and moment you would have where it would just give you like me at least a vivid flashback of the game. And I never got it in my Leon playthrough, but the Claire playthrough, because of the door you go through, I was like, oh, I remembered the liquor jumping through the glass, and I literally said, oh, I'm sure this is the room that made me stop playing Resident Evil 2 on PS1 because I went into that room injured with no health, and a liquor just kept coming out, and my little kid brain didn't know how to fix that situation, so I just stopped playing. And I was like, oh, it's not happened. It's just as I was about to leave, it came out. I was like, it made me shit myself. You son of a bitch.
That's so funny. I watched a video of a guy who's like, I guess using some sort of free cam thing while he's looking at the game, and there is no liquor in that room until you pick it up, until you pick up the thing. So it just like teleports in, and then it's like floating in the air because he like took the camera and then moved it into the opposite room to where you are. So it's just an empty room until you pick up whatever it is that you get in there. Then like pings in out of nowhere, like half in the air, and then just flies through the window.
One thing I want to actually, and maybe I just need to go away and Google it because you were on that. It just reminded me is like if we're talking about like video game trickery and little bits and pieces that they'll add in to make something seem like something it isn't. I realised that NoClip have put all their video game documentaries on podcasts, so you can sort of download them all. So I've been sort of listening to them rather than watching them as I've been at the gym. And they were I was listening to the Prey one yesterday, and they were talking about, when you go into the lift in Prey and then you get attacked by, because they've actually created a space station, the lift is an actual lift, which apparently is unusual in video games. And the only time it sort of messes with you is there's a bit where you're in the lift and you get one of the enemies jumps out on you while you're in the lift. It does a bit of like light flickering and teleports you to a different area that's not a lift. Where was I going with that? Anyway, it was just another example of a bit of video game trickery that I thought was interesting. But what I need to Google is I want to know why lifts are hard to do and what they do, because I was noticing when I was playing Resident Evil 2 after having listened to that, and there's plenty of lift, and I was like, this looks like a lift. Are they moving the whole environment rather than me? Because I think it's a gravity thing. So if you start moving a platform that you're on, the character doesn't know what to do, especially if they start jumping and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. But yeah, I was wondering what was actually happening, because there's no like light flickering. There's no like, is it quick teleporting I'm not seeing? I don't know.
Yeah. That video I was talking about actually is by a guy called Slippy Slides.
Slippy Slides. Let's have a look at that.
And it's called How Does Mr. X Work Off Camera? It's a really interesting video to watch actually, because I'm pretty sure I gleaned from that every cutscene in the game is in engine, and because he's like moving this free camera around while the cutscenes are going on, and they are effectively just being played out by your character anyway. It's just that, you know, in post production of the game, they're using like different camera angles to give it that film look. But it is just all like the way that you can see, like the way they sort of flicker lights on and they teleport people to different positions so that the camera's ready to film them. It's like it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah,
It's a really good video. I recommend everyone listening go watch.
I'm gonna watch it.
I've
I've looked him up, and he's got how does Lady Dimitrescu work, and how does
I
the
bet he does.
Nemesis work?
He's funny because he's from the north, so he's got like a proper, like, I don't know, he might be from Manchester. I can't tell, but he's got an interesting accent anyway. But he's
I'll give him a
crazy numbers
subscribe.
on it. Yeah, great video though. That is that really opened my eyes to how
so many videos
work.
I want to watch. Well, that's my life ruined.
We've already talked about like the underground facility boss fight with G1 version of Birkin, where you're running through the steam stuff. There's the parking garage as well. That's where like the game, once you've got the medallions, is really where the two playthroughs start to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
So with Leon, obviously you're dealing with Ben in his cell and Ada this time around, and obviously with Claire, you've got the disgusting Chief Irons and his weird noncery with Sherry.
Yeah. Bizarre.
Quite a small area. There's the firing range, which is quite funny because I guess you could shoot the zombies as if they're part of the firing range, which I always found quite amusing. The kennels, which we've spoken about as well, where there's dogs in there if you're Leon, but if you're Claire, there's lickers. And of course, the morgue. Classic. You need a morgue in a zombie game at some
you've
point.
got to have it, yeah.
Grab the thing off him and then he gets up. Whereas in the B playthrough, he got up immediately rather than after I picked up the key from him, which is quite funny. The jail escape as Leon is fucked up.
That's wild.
One of the hardest bits of the game, I reckon. Especially when Mr. X comes through the door right at the end as you're about to get out of there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't do that with Claire. You're in...
You don't go into jail at all.
You're in the obviously, each of the two characters gets their own specific key. Leon gets the club key and Claire gets the heart key, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and if you're Claire, you get to go into like the chief's office and all his like little secret rooms and all that sort of stuff. Whereas on the way to the orphanage, whereas Leon doesn't go anywhere near and he can't get in any of that area. You're all down in the jail cells instead. Then, there is, of course, I like that too. I really like
go back.
Totally, but then the next stage of that, if you're playing as Claire, is the orphanage section where you then play as Sherry and have to escape from the chief. Not a good section at all.
Absolutely.
Really the worst bit of the game.
Put the shitters at me.
You said you'd sat there with it paused like I did with Ashley in the Resi 4 remake. As I said, if you know the direction to go, it's like a piece of piss. But when you don't, it's very frustrating.
That's what I did. So I sat with it and then I was like, this is stressing me out, but I need to do it. So I looked up how to do it and then I just did it and it wasn't a bother at all.
Yeah. The worst thing about stuff like that, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that sections like that require you to wait for somebody to move and do their scripted animation and come back and search for you before you can do anything. So if you keep failing it, the level of player agency is so low because you're just standing crouched behind a fucking box. It is not fun to replay that after a fucking insta-death section. It's just not.
No.
Just stop doing it. Nobody likes those things. No one likes them. It's terrible. It's quite funny that she throws acid in his face and he gets fucking mouth raped by her dad. So, you know, all the stuff he does to Sherry, she absolutely gives back tenfold.
So what does, like, so he was like, if you hadn't, does he say something like, if you hadn't dropped that or thrown that or chucked that or something along those lines, I wouldn't have had to kidnap you or something? And I was like, well, what did she do? I don't know what she... Oh, it must be the locket. It must have been the locket. And then he saw the engraving on it and knew she was infected. Maybe that was it.
Well, this probably is going to come off badly on us and our lack of research, but he is obviously a puppet of something to do with Umbrella, isn't he? You see these emails coming through to him or memos that he's got that he is basically being used by
Mm-hmm.
Umbrella to help keep this under wraps. And I assume he's probably been tasked with the fact that Sherry is missing, and he has probably been instructed by Annette or somebody higher up at Umbrella to sort this shit out, which is probably why he takes her away. And as you say, then he notices the locket and whatever. Maybe that's when he realizes that she's connected to Umbrella. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
The only people who should have known the purpose of the pendant were Annette and William Birkin, so perhaps Annette wanted access to the virus chamber and contacted Irons to get him to find her daughter. Irons likely would have told her to shut. Okay, it's just fucking Reddit conjecture now, but yeah, he's in the pocket of Umbrella somehow.
In the old umbrella pocket.
We then move into the sewers. On the way to the sewers as Leon, you meet Kendo and his daughter, which I said I think is a very well acted cutscene. I really think they absolutely nail that part of it. So yeah, you're then trying to save Sherry if you're playing as Claire. The sewer area is really not that big in the original, but it's fucking massive and like labyrinthine.
It is big,
this version. To the point where I generally don't enjoy that part of the game. I mean, obviously, as I said, the police station is a fucking work of art, but the sewers and to a lesser extent the labs are quite the opposite of that.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think the sewers is probably my least favourite part. It's got my least favourite enemies in it as well, like those blobs.
I hate those.
They're just not. They're not fun to interact with. They don't look interesting. I just don't. They're just sort of big and a big lump of lard. Basically, they're horrid.
Yeah,
and they're just least favourite enemies in the game. I think by time
I'd rather have had the fucking spiders from the original Resi 2.
Oh, is there spiders?
Yeah, I'd rather have had that than this shit.
There's by the time I got to the lab, I was kind of like ready for something like that. I quite enjoyed the lab area by the time I got there.
Yeah, getting back out of the sewers and back to something slightly more like the first part of the game is definitely the right move.
Yeah.
I mean, the alligator boss is awful. In the original game, it's like a bit of a meme. It's just you just walk down and press a button and shoot the thing in its mouth. But this does that Crash Bandicoot bollocks of making you run towards the camera and you can't see where you're going.
It's not a good game design.
What is that?
Running at the camera is not good.
It's just not. I mean, for the entire game, I can see what Liam can see, except for now, for some reason.
Yeah.
Bizarre. And I died on that at least 5 times. Like I shit the bed on it. I must have been rank 5 by the end of that, or whatever it is that we were saying earlier. They were apparently they really struggled with that as well. Like they were desperate to get that, keep it in there because they knew fans would want the alligator to be in the game and in the remake. But they really felt like it wasn't a good fit for the new, atmosphere and style of this darker, grittier Resi. So they tried to rework it many times, and if that's the best they could do, then
at least
fine.
It's short.
Yeah, it's like a minute tops. I think the Ada stuff is not bad. I quite like a little hacking tool and stuff. That's quite stressful, especially that bit where you've got Mr. X like chasing you around that zombie area, and you've got to try and like very quickly hack your way to get out of.
He killed me the first time he appears in there. Yeah, because I didn't think to use the hacking tool, so I ran by him as he was.
Then
coming
you've
down
got to
the
go
corridor.
all the way back again.
Now I was like, well, I've got to go back again. And I did not make it back.
Yeah, and obviously the incinerator as well is similar to that, where you're kind of locked in there, and you've got a time limit. You've got to very quickly figure out where the blue lines are.
I think we've spoken about this before. People were very angry at the Ada Wong stuff. Why? Do you know?
That's in a new game.
Oh, right, okay.
They hated her voice actor in the new game. This one I think is very good. I don't know why they didn't keep her on. They seem to have like jettisoned a lot of this staff. Like the Leon's not the same in Resident Evil 4 in this one either, even though it's only 4 years ago.
Wonder why.
Yeah, but I thought this Ada was pretty good. They stuck her in a trench coat as well because they thought that would make more sense for her being a spy than a big weird like sexy red dress that she has in the original. I guess that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, totally.
But they went full on like deep throat with her, which again sounds really bad. But I'm talking about the Watergate dude. Big trench coat, shades, car park. It's very Watergate.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah. We've spoken about the blob monsters. They fucking suck. Chess pieces, puzzle pieces. We already talked about that as well. But I think that's very cool. I like both the puzzles for
It's
that.
cool. It's very Resident Evil. It's the same
Oh,
with
so
like
Resi.
medallions. Like, why is there medallions in a
Uh,
police station? Like, it makes no sense, but it's Resident Evil, so just don't think too hard
yeah,
about it. And if you
basically.
just think about it like that, it's fun. No idea why they're chess pieces. Is the company called Knights or something?
There is something on a
Or a keyring?
like a yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure about that. There's another boss in here again. There's the G2 version of the Tyrant, not the Tyrant, Birkin. This is the one where he claws you through the ceiling. Hate it. The
Yeah,
whole
I hate that
crane
bit.
thing.
Yep. I kind of figured out how to do it, so by the time I did it with Claire, I just
Yeah,
did it. But the first time I was doing it with Leon, I was like, this is not fun.
there is apparently a way to like do that in a one cycle. So something like you throw a flash grenade at him, shoot him with the flamethrower, and then when he's getting up, you flash grenade him again, and then you be hitting him with the flamethrower as he gets hit by the thing. And apparently that'll do it in one go. But I've only ever done it with 2 turns
I was
to
about to say
knock
that
him
also
off.
sounds like it's like an uneconomical use of ammo.
Yeah, I it reminds me a lot of there's a boss, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's a boss in Code Veronica where you're on a plane and you've got to try and like knock him out of the plane by unleashing like this cargo on him. And fuck me, I like the amount of times I failed that in my life, just over and over and over again. And it's a similar kind of like puzzle boss where you just got to knock something off the edge of something by pressing a button at the right time and having them in the right position. Just yeah, flashbacks. I think PTSD from that. Um, and the final section of the game is the labs, as we said. You've got this the main objective there is to like upgrade your ID wristband
Mm.
to get to different like areas of the lab. The way you have to get to the different areas, it's reminiscent of the original as well. You've got these Ivy zombies now, which, as David said earlier, is a lot easier to deal with if you've got the flamethrower with Leon
Yeah.
than if you've got probably limited by this point flame rounds for your grenade launcher with Claire. And having to use one of them on a downed enemy as well feels like such a waste.
I used them. I like cleared that whole area and then it repopulates them later on. I was so gutted that I just wasted all that ammo.
I think you can probably see them because they're all
Oh,
like
you
hanging
think?
from the
Right.
ceiling,
Okay.
aren't they?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you look up, they're probably up there. They're just suspended. But that's an annoying sort of segment of the room. But I do like this area actually. It's got a slightly unique feel to it. It's probably not the most visually interesting to look at,
No,
but
but there's like fun
it's in
bits
the
to it.
original.
Like I thought there's like a cafeteria section where you're going through and
I
it's
like
like,
that.
oh, that's a really cool
That's
bit.
new for this game, yeah.
And then there's the bit with the liquors. That whole area is just chaotic in a way that it's
That's
quite fun.
that's classic. That's classic Resi. Like you've now got all the big guns. Here's shitloads of enemies. You can deal with them by now. Enjoy, kind of thing. Because you're going back to lots of zombies again, I suppose.
Yeah.
Mr. X returns if you're playing as Leon. Obviously, he's dead if you're Claire by this point. He's killed by Birkin's
Yeah, he
mutated
chases you
monster.
out. I kept expecting that to happen. I was like, oh, maybe there's another one. But
Yeah.
no.
I don't mind the drug puzzles as well. I thought that was quite fun, like mixing the little solutions to
Yeah,
get
yeah, I
it
thought it was
to the right
fairly
level.
good.
At least that makes sense in world this time. You are just mixing some stuff. But I think, as you and I said, imagine if all like science and security was to the level of you've got a signal modulator and you've got to make the little tune go correct and then stick it in the wall, or here, go make that solution. Just make it go to this red line.
I was
There you go.
actually
There's your drug.
I was expecting a bit more. Not that I was disappointed in any way, but I kept expecting a bit more to that drug sampling. So when you read the how to put the drug stuff together at the
Yeah,
end, it's like immediately cool, or it's like,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, so I was expecting there to be a time limit, like
Me too.
mix the drug sample and then have to get there, because especially when you're going through it the first time, there's that is it there's the lady who you end up with her art with her pass and reading her emails. She's dead beside a computer and she's sitting in
Yeah,
a way. And I keep thinking she's going to get up, but in my game she just never did.
yeah. There's a guy in like a hazmat suit in that drug room as well. I always thought
Yeah, I
he
was
was going to be
expect. I
there.
was like, right, I'm going to have a time limit, and these guys are all going to animate, and they just never did.
Yeah. There's another the next boss that we fight is the G3 version of Birkin, which is the one where you're like you fight him under slightly different circumstances depending on who you're playing as, because Leon is forced down there by Annette. She like traps them, whereas Claire like steps up and's like, I'm fucking doing it, which I thought was quite a nice little dynamic shift. That is maybe the best one. They're all not great. They're all so similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's again a short area. He likes to pick stuff up off the walls and try and lob it at you. But you can interrupt that animation if you shoot him enough times. It gives you a lot of easily accessible like items that I guess probably makes it the best one for me. That it just fucks with me the least and gives me enough like help to get out of there. What do you think?
Yeah, it was, as far as those things go, I don't think it was very good, but my one still remains the first boss fight. That's my favourite.
Okay.
But I can see why you would like this one. The train one at the end with Claire's maybe my second favourite, but purely because it's so easy. You just stand and shoot it.
It's a spectacle fight, that one, isn't it? It's just a big disc. Apparently, you can knife that after a while. If it gets close enough, you can knife it.
Can you?
And
I'm quite happy with that. Yeah. Like, I don't enjoy them, so if it's just a big spectacle, silly, off the top rope elbow drops, like, go for it. I'm all in for that.
Because after the if you're playing as Leon, obviously you get Ada's betrayal, where it turns out that she was not FBI and does want the virus to sell. I guess not for Umbrella, but she's working for whatever.
Take it as deliberately ambiguous that like I'm having played a few Resident Evil games now with Ada in it. It's just never clear what she is, like good or bad or indifferent.
Yeah, she's sexy, but you can't trust her.
A bit like Chloe from Uncharted. You just don't know what she's about.
Yeah. We obviously get the mandatory, obligatory self-destruct and escape sequence thing that happens in all the Resi games that are worth their salt. And then you've got loads of bosses, like depending on what you're doing. So if you're Leon, you've got the shitty super tyrant. But please tell me, after you use the rocket launcher to kill him, which is a great way to kill him because you basically like explode the entire top half of his body. The next time you go as part of the escape sequence where you've got like those zombies all bust out of a door, please tell me you used the rocket launcher on them the way I did.
I don't think I used the rocket launcher again.
You're not?
No.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah, I bet that's really good.
Yeah.
I've missed
You can use that. You can use that on the final boss on the train if you've done a Leon B playthrough.
Okay, yeah, cool.
You'll have that with you so you can start like pumping him full of rockets. Yeah. But if you're Claire, you may be using the minigun that you got from the previous boss, which is G4 on the train car turntable, which that is quite funny when he does the big like elbow drop, as you say. But again, it's just another slow moving boss that swings around and there's loads of weak points. They're all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real shame, but does not distract or detract from the point that this is a fucking brilliant video game.
Oh, it's awesome.
One of my favorites ever. A remake of one of my favorite ever games into another one of my favorite ever games. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's at the moment. I reserve the right to change my mind, but I like the Dead Space remake that they did, and I don't think that exists without this game. So I like sort of a lot of what is spurred in a way. Or maybe not even a lot. Maybe just I like the fact that I've got a Dead Space remake and I wouldn't have it for RE2. I can't think of anything else that I'm particularly excited about. But yeah, like I love this game, and I love this game much more this time than I did the first time I played it through. I remember I played through it, did the Leon campaign, and then I bounced onto something else. Whereas I was quite excited to go back and play the Claire one. I think I said to you before, I'll do the Leon one, then I'll make a start on Claire, and we'll see how far it goes. And I ended up just powering through and finishing it with Claire as well because I was having so much fun. And then I started again in a B playthrough, but I do think now I've hit my.
I remember you saying that earlier. Yeah, and obviously I did smash through the third playthrough, but probably because you were at the same point in your A1. But
it's an awesome
quadruple,
awesome game. They've done everything you would have wanted them to do. Like we said before, it is respectful but also fresh. It it is somehow they've straddled the line. The sort of funny thing about gamers is they want everything to be the same but also different, and somehow they've done it with this game. And kudos to them because they've reinvigorated a franchise that was sorely needed it after the treatment it got after 4.
Yeah, and they reinvigorated it whilst simultaneously like splitting it off into 2 separate entities where you've got a first person new Resident Evil main numbered series, and you've got remakes of all the classics in this style that seems to be winning every time they bring one out, except 3, which we'll talk about probably next year.
Probably. Yeah, and I also just like, I think we've sort of touched on this stuff before, but I hope it encourages the video game industry to realise that not every video game that is made has to be the AAA or quadruple A or however many A's we're attaching to our video games now thing that ends up shooting for the same thing. Like, you can make a successful game that's highly profitable in a way that people like. It doesn't all have to be Fortnite. It doesn't all have to be Call of Duty. You can sort of carve a niche. And the reason I say that is because that's why Resident Evil ended up in the mess it was. They decided that the horror game was a niche and they didn't make enough money, so they tried to transition it into an action game and learned all the wrong lessons from 4. They made a game that was all right in 5 and truly awful in 6 and ruined what was a profitable franchise for them.
Absolutely. Although I think 6 is still the biggest seller.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting.
It's a disgrace.
But same with, as we've spoken about before, Assassin's Creed does the same thing. You get punished for the game previously, or praised previously. Yeah. It would be the game that came after 6 that they never did, that I guess would be... In fact, no, we did discuss this. 7 sold pretty poorly, and it's probably because of 6.
Yeah, well, I think that is to blame, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm waffling.
I think we can wrap it up.
So that brings us to the end. What have we got next, Alex? We're about to go and do the OG version of Resident Evil 3. Is that fair? Or like we're adding,
what we're doing.
Adding textures to this one probably because we'll be emulating it on PC, but for all intents and purposes, it's the OG version.
It is the OG version. We will be playing the Seamless HD Project version that I will link to in the episode notes of that episode. But it's effectively a special version of the Dolphin emulator, which allows you to play the GameCube version.
Right,
in
okay.
Ridiculous high def. It's beautiful.
This is, in my memory, I've played like an hour or so of this game. It is like, there's a more action heavy feel to it. Like, you literally start with a machine gun. So it's going to be a different vibe to what we've got.
Yeah,
RE2.
Lots of choices to make. Whenever the Nemesis comes along, you've got to decide whether you always get 2 choices to make, and that will affect different things in the game. So it's probably going to be worth a couple of playthroughs, I think.
Yes, cool. And is it short? How long is it?
Yeah, it was criticised for how short it was.
Okay, so
which we can give more. We can give more context to because I'll probably read Itchy Tasty about Resi 3 to understand what they were doing while they made it. You've also got that book, haven't you? So it's worth a read.
I've got that book. It's very good. Right.
You finished it?
Yeah. I loved it. Which I suppose brings us to the end. If you enjoyed what you heard today, and even if you didn't, please subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice, and then do us a favour and leave us a 5-star review. If you prefer to see while you hear, you can also head over to our YouTube channel where you can catch up on the video version of the podcast. Beyond that, we love to hear from you all, so please send us any questions or thoughts over to our email address, awinnerisyoupod@gmail.com, or you can also keep up to date with the latest going ons here at A Winner Is You Towers by following us on Twitter @WinnerIsYouPod, or give either myself or Alex a follow @DavidSmiley1 and @SuperThrillix if Twitter's still alive by this point, where you can be treated to whatever word vomit comes to our minds at any particular moment. From my side, I continue to write my weekly newsletter, so please head over to supersmiley.substack.com and subscribe so I can send you a weekly email about the interesting news going on across the games industry. Alex, do you want to pimp your podcast? What is going on this week? What game are you covering? Or themes are you voting for? Sorry.
Hack and slash games this week.
Great one. What's your vote, or is that
That was
top
that was
secret?
my choice this time around. Well, it was really funny because at the end of the recording for the last one, after we finished recording, we were sort of trying to feel out what each other had thought about picking, and I said basically, if you're gonna nominate a hack and slash game for a Hall of Fame, surely it begins with either B, D, G, and then somebody said or N, and I was like, what the hell is
N.
N? So mine is Bayonetta. That's definitely what I'm.
Yeah, I was about after I asked you and you started speaking. I was like, he's definitely picking Bayonetta.
Yeah, because obviously, and then the D and the G, I assume.
Devil May Cry, and
Yeah.
the G, God of War,
Yeah, and then N, I'm pretty
Ninja
sure.
Gaiden.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going to pick, which is an
Okay.
excellent game. Fucking absolutely rock hard.
Great
But I'm
old
pretty sure he's
Xbox
picking that.
up-res port as well.
Fucking
It's on Game
Yeah,
Pass.
really good, really really good. That's the first game I played on my Series X. Was my original
Excellent.
Xbox copy of Ninja Gaiden.
Excellent.
Yeah, in slightly better quality than it could have been played on the Xbox One that I just got rid of.
I'm trying to think what I would pick for a hack and slash game. It's not my genre. I don't know.
I think a lot of people on that pod are going to feel the same way. Because it was my choice of category. A lot of them are just kind of like, yeah, let's get it over with.
My one's probably Enslaved, but I've got no idea how that plays today. So it may be bad.
Does that even count?
It's made by
This is the thing.
the
Like,
DMC4
what counts as a
lot.
hack and slash?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
is it?
guess. Yeah.
Oh, I guess it probably does then.
Because there's a lot of sort of platforming to that in a
Yeah.
way that you wouldn't expect. But I don't know how much platforming Bayonetta got. I've never even seen that game in action.
Oh, you are missing out. I'm going to make you play that one day.
You're going to force it on a podcast at some point.
Yeah, I mean, if you Google it, you're getting stuff like all the Dynasty Warriors games, that
No.
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which
Okay,
is pretty fucking
that's probably
cool.
a valid choice. The old melon chopping.
Yeah. What else we got? All the Bayonettas are there. No More Heroes, apparently. Darksiders.
That's No More Heroes.
They're saying
Nah. In
Star
Darksiders
Wars: The
is more.
Force Unleashed.
Nah.
Near Automata.
Don't know if I've played that one.
Hades.
No.
Lollipop Chainsaw.
Okay, that's probably one. I watched someone do a retrospective review of that and made me want to play it. But I need to play
you
it.
made me want to play it by saying that.
Yeah.
Which I already wanted to play it anyway, and now I really want to play it. Because I think they're going to remaster that, aren't they?
I heard, there's something floating about it.
Yeah.
Need to play it in a dark room where no one can look through the window and see what I'm playing.
Lock the door.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, I've been David. He has been Alex. We have been A Winner As You. And I'm out.
Keep gaming.